So in the past, I've gone out of my way to respond to young Christians on YouTube who are forwarding their parents' beliefs. In these instances, I take extra care in ensuring that I treat them well, whilst respecting them enough as someone who clearly wants to talk about these things that I won't shy away from certain topics. This video is going to get heavy. We are dealing with a rather young Christian, and I would therefore like to request that everyone viewing this video show the individual I'm responding to the same amazing attitude I saw last year in my Answering Confusion a Young Christian Has About Atheist video. So with that noted, roll the intro.
Hey guys, it's Bella here. So I have been struggling with making this video for reasons I don't even know. But yeah, I've tried to film this video multiple times, and I'm just like, you know what? I gotta do this. I gotta film it now, or else I'm never gonna get it done. It's gotta be done. So yeah, I don't know how this is gonna go. I find that I struggle with these sit down and talk videos. I struggle with making them. I know with my last one, with the end times, I had to try to make that one a couple times because I wasn't fully satisfied with it. So we'll see how this one goes, but yeah.
Hi there, Bella. I go by both the names Peter and Ethel, or Effie as some people seem to have issues saying Ethel. I am an atheist, but what's more important is I am a humanist. That is, I hold to a secular philosophy that upholds innate human value, evidentialism, and education. Pretty much, I'm a strong supporter of human rights. I require evidenced reasoning to be convinced of something, and I believe education to hold the key to our species survival and general well-being. As for your video, don't worry. You're doing okay so far. Certainly much better than some videos I've seen in the past. You actually have some pretty decent audio, which, oddly enough, I'd say is more important than the visual aspects of a video. As for being nervous, been there, done that. I mean, you can just do as many takes as you need, as you probably have done already, and you just cut sections up, put them together, editing them, and then publish it. So anyway, please do continue. You're doing fine.
So this video in particular is a video to the skeptics, to the atheists out there, and all that stuff. So I know I have heard a lot in my school, and you'll probably hear it in your schools and your works. Wherever you are, you're going to hear of atheists and skeptics in general and non-believers and all that stuff. And so I just want to say something. This video is for any atheists out there. If you know of an atheist, if you know of a skeptic, send this video to that person and just share it, do whatever you need to. I have a message for you. I know this sounds cliche, but God loves you.
You're right, it is a little cliche, and one many of us have heard time and time again. The problem comes with giving you your very claim that a God exists, just hypothetically, so pretending that there is a God and that said God had been proven to exist. How does that God perceive the act of love as can be witnessed through what we see in the universe they supposedly created for us? Now, you are rather young, and whilst that's not necessarily a sign of your overall maturity, there are a number of things you may not have yet given much thought, and you probably will over time. For a start, we can look at nature. One of the common examples brought forward by theists, people who believe in God, for not only a deity, but a loving deity. Common sayings such as, look at the foods God has provided. Look at the animals for our companionship and the stars to leave us in awe. Now, I could respond to this in person, but I'd much rather play a clip by British national treasure Sir David Attenborough, a man who has spent decades studying said natural world.
I often get letters, quite frequently, of people who say how they like your programs a lot, but I never give credit to the almighty power that created nature. To which I reply and say, well, it's funny that the people when they say that this is evidence of Almighty, always quote beautiful things. They always quote orchids and hummingbirds and butterflies and roses. But I always have to think too of a little boy sitting on the banks of a river in West Africa who has a worm boring through his eyeball, turning him blind before he is 5 years old. And I reply and say, well, presumably the God you speak about created the worm as well. And now I find that baffling to credit a merciful God, that action. And therefore, it seems to me safer to show things that I know to be truthful and factual, and allow people to make up their own mind about the moralities of this thing, or indeed the theology of this thing. I mean, we made a film about chimps hunting monkeys. That was an extraordinary and powerful and alarming and dismaying thing to see. They've got one. The hunters are tearing it apart. Again, people say, how can you put on such savagery of a predator catching prey? And you are milking it for violence. If they saw what you put out on the cutting room floor of this animal in suffering, I mean, it's a very narrow line you have to tread. You cannot, in my view, eliminate it entirely. That is to sentimentalize and to distort reality.
Now, there is no good reason why any god, were they to exist, had to create a world in which these sort of things occurred. I mean, consider the very nature of life on Earth. Beyond a few types of organisms such as plants and some special forms of bacteria and algae, all life exists on the consumption of other life. Why a god would create that, I do not know. And that's without considering parasites, plagues, tsunamis, earthquakes, and all manner of events that cause our species untold harm. These things tear apart communities, killing or maiming family members. A god who would create such a system for their apparent children is not the beacon of love you would claim. But it's not only what they have apparently done, but what they have apparently allowed to occur. I'm a victim of childhood sexual abuse. There are countless like me, many of whom were abused in a religious establishment by clergy who were then shipped off elsewhere by the church. This is not just a problem for Catholicism, but all forms of Christianity, and indeed all mainstream religions in my experience. And yet not a single case has ever been stopped by any sort of deity. Many of these abusers destroy the lives of, as the cliché states, only God apparently knows, as the very same God stands idle. God's preservation of a rapist's free will in allowing them to rape others results in the destruction of the very same free will in all of their victims. Now, before I was sexually assaulted, I lived in a household where my mother's partner was domestically abusive. And even though she had to leave nearly everything of hers behind and risk the wrath of a man who had spent years hurting her, she still risked it all to save both me and my brother. And if she had known about the later sexual abuse, I am certain she would have done something, taken some sort of action, regardless of the consequences. That is love, doing what you can for the people you care about, in spite of the danger. God has no apparent danger, being all-powerful, and yet he does less than people who have been stripped of nearly everything. Now, I must note that this has nothing to do with my belief or lack thereof. I in fact became religious a few years after these events, as I was too young to understand the concept of religion back then. Now, some people will say that without the bad, we cannot know the good, or we lose free will without it. To this I respond that we don't need starvation to feel hunger. I don't need to be raped to stub my toe. I mean, I can't turn people inside out with a simple thought. Does that then mean that God has taken my free will away from me in not enabling me that action? If not, then why does genocide, rape, and natural ailments have to exist in a world apparently created by a loving being? So in closing, all I want to do is highlight in this segment is that if there is a God, to call either their action or inaction love is a crime against the very word. A crime said God will have to beg for forgiveness for when faced with every rape victim, everyone who has ever died at the hands of fascism, such as during the Holocaust, and all who have lost in any natural disaster.
And I know how it can feel to doubt, to wonder if this is real, if this is true, if this is like life. And I just want to let you know, you atheists out there, if you seek God's will, you will find it. If you try, you will find him, and I can 150% guarantee you that. If you try, anybody, if you seek God's will, you will find him, and you will experience him in so many incredible ways. It is, the human mind cannot wrap around it, and it cannot be explained all the time. And it's just something that you have to go and experience it for yourself. It really is, most of the time, that kind of situation. So yeah.
Sadly, your reassurance of 150% has a margin of error to match. I can imagine where this has come from. Perhaps your parents or your local clergyman has told you that atheists are just people who refuse to come to God, or perhaps you've watched one too many Christian films. But the reality is that the road away from Christianity is littered with red Bibles. Now, this isn't a snappy comeback that was simply thought up. This is a verbal recognition of the fact that many ex-Christians, including myself, left said beliefs as we studied them further. I was indoctrinated by my school, sadly, one which classed itself as entirely secular, yet forced students to sit through religious assemblies during lesson time, which were always started with the claim that this isn't a religious assembly, so we wouldn't go home and tell on them. But I hit a rough time in my life as I began to notice and conceptualize death via loved ones around me, and that made me want to be a better Christian, because surely if bad stuff was happening to me, it was a sign that God was displeased with me somehow. I believe that if I was good enough in being a good Christian, that God would stop taking away those that I loved, those that I cared about. So the first thing I did was start reading the Bible, the effect of which was a faith spiral, as I read about such destruction and death. Reading the story of Sodom and Gomorrah and the story of Job as a child was freaking terrifying, a fact not helped by religious film such as these which were played in our school.
Lot, bring everyone you care for. This city tilts at the edge of darkness. Its death is folded in our wings. Fly from the city. Run from your graves. Run. But do not look back. Not once.
These faces stuck with me every time I came back to that part of the Bible. Those aren't the faces of someone loved by a just God. I expected that sort of thing from the Clash of Titans. But this God was supposedly real. They were supposed to actually exist and to dictate my life. Of course, they still removed the part where Lot offered his daughters to the crowd to be raped. So, anyway, I started to question why exactly I believed in such a self-contradictory being which is apparently loving and yet wrathful. And once that had happened, the fate of my religious belief was sealed. I realized that I had no actual reason to believe, just what I've been told I should believe because it's what makes you a good person. Ever since then, I have been studying the mysteries of the universe with the help of philosophy and science, and I even turned what I love into a career. Do note, nowhere did anger or fear turn me from God, but merely get me to question my beliefs. The initial step was emotional, but the actual deconversion was purely reasoned.
There are atheists out there who are willing to listen. They are willing to say, you know what, if you can prove this to me, I will consider it, I'll listen. But then there'll be atheists out there who are too stubborn. They're not willing to try, because the truth is, the reason you're not willing to try is probably because you know that it could very well be true. And you know that if it is true, that's scary, and you won't be able to live for yourself. You will have to change your life, which, yes, you will have to change your life. God is life-changing. But He has changed my life for the better.
That's not true in the slightest. God or no God, only one thing changes, and that's whether or not I acknowledge that the existence of God has been proven. That doesn't force me to do anything else, and my beliefs don't change reality one way or the other. So what you are claiming makes no logical sense in that it doesn't follow. Once you did not know about the existence of Adolf Hitler, leader of Nazi Germany during the Second World War. Did your discovery of their existence in history class or in conversation magically change your life? Did it force you to follow their will? No. The same would be true of your God if you did indeed prove they existed. The honest reason for atheists is that never in the history of humankind has valid evidence for the existence of a God been supplied. That's all there is to it, and if you disagree, well, you're free to supply said evidence so we may test it. You were raised in a Christian community. I wasn't raised in an atheist one. That is the difference.
I don't regret finding Jesus because it is the best thing that has ever happened to me. My life isn't my life, it is Him. It all belongs to God. And I have never been more happy than I am now with God.
You didn't find Jesus. He was forced onto you at an early age, and you've known no real alternative, so the statement that you've never been happier means nothing. I've seen both worlds, and I can tell you that the false sense of security you're given by religion is only a fraction of that you can gain in coming to acknowledge reality.
So yeah, if you are an atheist out there, if you are a skeptic out there, try. Just try, because if you really try and believe that you will get something back, you will. I'm telling you right now, you will. And I have no problem saying that because I have confidence in my God. I have faith and I trust in my God, and you should too. Because I'm telling you, I have experienced it for myself, and so will you. I'm telling you, an atheist, you can do great things in the name of Jesus. There are atheists that have healed other people in Jesus' names. Go on and do your research, guys.
I have done my research. I also know a couple of magicians who have been able to replicate said healings, like my American counterparts at Better Off Damned, who crashed a faith healing gig and pulled off the leg growth trick whilst teaching people how it's done. This is what you've experienced, but with less honest individuals. Con artistry. I mean, it's funny how these people don't work in hospitals if their tricks were more than just that, or why they never claimed the $1 million on offer by the James Randi Educational Foundation between 1964 and 2015 to anyone who could demonstrate any paranormal incident in a controlled condition. Now you may say they don't need the money, but $1 million is a lot to donate to a charity. They could have proven God and saved lives, but instead they refused to do so. Why? Well, Randi, who is another magician by the way, has a habit for sniffing out the tools of the trade and blowing the case wide open. For example, he managed to patch into Peter Popoff's wireless earpiece during his faith healing sessions. It didn't go well.
And I want to be as aware as I possibly can. That means giving up a lot of fantasies that might be comforting in some ways, but I'm willing to give that up in order to live in an actually real world, as close as I can get to it.
Take this message to the world. It's the season of harvest.
During the 1980s, I entered a world that I found filled with fantasy and rife with abuse. The world of faith healing. I developed a special interest in a television evangelist named Peter Popoff.
And God told me, He said, you smite that cancer with your fist.
At the time, Popoff was pulling in nearly $4 million a year, healing people on his miracle crusades.
You've got cancer of the stomach? Are you ready for God to burn that cancer out? Here it goes in the mighty... Devil, back off. Back off, devil! Woo. Hallelujah! Hallelujah!
You really believe you're healed?
Yes.
You think your cancers are gone now?
Yes, I believe that because God never lies and we stand in His word. Praise the Lord.
I tell you, from now on, you're going to have a song of victory in your heart. Amen.
To his followers, Popoff seemed to have divine powers.
Alice, is it Gould? Alice Gould?
He knew their names,
Stand up, Alice.
as well as the afflictions they'd come to cure.
God is touching that thyroid condition right now. God is touching your nerves right now. God is touching your eyes. Just lift up your hands, get ready, here it comes.
He also knew the personal details of their
You're going to
lives.
hear good news from Charles before everything is over. I'll tell you, he's going to be completely delivered because of your prayers, because of your faith. Here it comes, complete healing in Jesus' mighty name right now, right now, right now. Amen. It's all right to praise the Lord.
I suspected that Popoff's revelations were other than divine. The radio scanner we brought to the hall picked up a decidedly worldly source.
Hello, Petey. Can you hear me? If you can't, you're in trouble.
John, is it
Popoff was being prompted by his wife through a wireless earpiece.
John?
Deary Johnson.
She'd gotten her information from prayer cards filled out by the faithful before the show began.
She wants to get rid of the walker.
You want to get rid of this walker, sister? Oh, glory. How long have you been walking on that walker?
About 3 years.
3 years.
She lives at 1627 10th Street.
1627 10th Street? Is that right?
That's right.
She has arthritis all over.
Burning this arthritis right out of your body. Take a few steps just to make the devil mad. Hallelujah. That's it. Just move around a little bit. There she goes. Just walk with me. Oh, glory to God. She's not going to need that walker anymore. God's just putting new strength, new health, burning that arthritis out of her body. Just keep going. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
I was able to arrange for another broadcast of the Miracle Crusade on The Tonight Show, but this time the wireless prompting was included. In 1987, Peter Popoff declared bankruptcy.
Greater is he. Greater is he.
The fact that he knows these details, which, since he hasn't stepped off stage and the audience has no idea about the earpiece, makes it easy for the emotions to take over and make the person believe for a short period that they have been healed. So-called faith healing is a vile practice that delays any actual treatments and can very often take money from those who have the least to give. I don't think that's the example you want to go with. As for your personal experience, bring evidence and we can talk.
There's a video that I found on Facebook. It is about a 10-minute video, but it is worth the watch. Watch it till the end. It is so worth the watch. If you are an atheist, if you are a skeptic, I suggest that you go watch that video. Link is in the description, the description. Please go watch that video beginning to end. It totally describes perfectly. It's called The Atheist Delusion, and it totally portrays it well. And yeah, it explains how atheists think that something comes from nothing, which is not possible. And it'll get more into that in that video. I suggest that you go watch that, guys. And yeah, if you are an atheist, a skeptic, and you have any questions, please contact me. I want to help you guys. I want to answer your questions and just that's what I'm here for. I'm here to do the Lord's work. I'm here to do that. So I will have my email in the description below and my Instagram in the description below if you want to like direct message me on Instagram or email me. I check it very frequently, so I should be able to get back to you soon. And yeah.
The video is of course the entirely dishonest pile of strawman carcasses known as the Atheist Delusion, or more accurately a portion of said intellectually bankrupt piece that has been refuted by countless atheists from different walks of life. Ray Comfort and his gang are a dishonest group from the start to the end in both their terminology, their presentation of what an atheist is, and the editing they use. For example, when it comes to the editing, Comfort's style as shown in the particular segment is to ambush hundreds of random people on the street as well as a few plants by him and ask them a chain of questions in rapid fire to try and trip up the naive participants and give his plants opportunity to say what he wants them to say. He'll then edit down hundreds of hours of him predominantly getting his ass handed to him by people who actually know who he is, down to 10 minutes of the few people who are overwhelmed by his current of ignorance, as well as the plants to give the impression that this is the standard of all atheists. If you're going to use Ray Comfort as your source for what an atheist is, all you're going to do is make atheists think you haven't taken the topic very seriously. As for something from nothing is impossible, what about your God? Now do note, any answer you can give, I can also apply to the universe as well, and if you assert otherwise, we would refer to that as a special pleading fallacy, i.e. an unfounded double standard for one position when held next to another. The universe could have always existed in some timeless quantum state. Maybe it was multiverse, or maybe it's just necessary that the universe comes from nothing. The assertion that something can't come from nothing has no scientific basis to date, as we've never seen something come into being. We've only seen something be turned into something else. When I make a pizza, I'm not creating matter and energy. I'm only transferring it from one state to another. So your assertion lacks any basis whatsoever. But all that matters is that whilst we don't know a perfectly okay admission, science is investigating the origins of our universe, and currently no model to date calls for an as of yet unproven deity such as the one of the Bible. So those are my thoughts on the matter, and I hope I wasn't too harsh, and I hope that I've given you plenty to think about. In summary, most atheists are not ignorant of the Bible. We don't hate your unproven God, and we're certainly not afraid of their existence. Many of us have done our research and just found what you have asserted to be entirely unconvincing. Oh, and don't ever, and I repeat, don't ever use the banana man to tell you what atheism, i.e. the sole shared quality between atheists, is. I lack a belief in God. It's that simple. Hi there. I'd just like to say a few things here at the end of the video. First, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who has ever donated to the channel via Patreon, giving a special thanks to the following people: Trevor Matheson, Andrew Spreitzer, Sean Connolly, Alexander Williams, Daniel Martinez, and of course, Matthew Kovac. Your support has ensured this channel its ability to grow over the years, and hopefully for the years to come. I'd also like to ask that you comment down below and like this video, as well as subscribe and follow Essence of Thought on Facebook. Please also consider following the Atheist Alliance International group on Facebook, an organisation dedicated to helping atheists around the globe. Last of all, I'd like to request that you treat the people responded to in this video with a reasonable degree of respect. Whilst it is understandable that there are justifiable limits to said respect when tackling certain heavy topics, and anger can be a very genuine emotion in tackling injustice, any comments utilising language which insults others on the basis of perceived gender, sexuality, ethnicity, or both ability, mental and physical, will be removed immediately, and the commenter may be blocked on the moderator's discretion. Let's keep this space one which upholds the humanist values. So with that noted, take care.